A 6-year-old girl's shaking like crazy next to her mom's SUV, tiny hands clutching a piece that no kid should ever touch, eyes locked on a cop reaching for his gun. Time's moving slow. Every second feels like forever. Yo, what kind of messed up moment makes a little kid pull the trigger? She's trying to protect her mom, the one person who's always had her back. That day in Novi, Michigan, it's about to change everything. But to really get what went down, we gotta rewind. All right, so here's the deal. This story first popped up online and it's been blowing up all over the place. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. People are sharing it, debating it, dropping comments like crazy, saying it's unreal, saying it's terrifying, but everyone's got to see it for themselves. This is about a 6-year-old girl, Aaliyah, and her mom, Denise, just trying to live their lives, just trying to go shopping, just trying to do something normal on a random day in Novi, Michigan. But what happens next has got the internet shook. It's got people asking questions, like, how did it get this far? How did a simple trip to Walmart turn into a situation nobody could have imagined? And it's raising all these conversations about police profiling, how black people get targeted for the smallest things, how fear spreads in seconds, and when does self-defense become something no one wants to admit? People are looking at this like, did that kid do what she had to do? Or did it all go too far? And the thing is, no one can stop watching, because every clip, every post, every retelling keeps adding layers, showing how fast normal life can go sideways, how quickly things escalate when someone feels threatened. And people online keep asking, was this justice? Was this tragedy? Who's really in the wrong here? And as the story spreads, everyone's taking sides, everyone's reacting, but the question lingers. The big one, staring right at us, making us uncomfortable, making us question our own instincts, our own ideas about right and wrong. And that's where we're starting, because before we get to what happened that day, we gotta understand the buildup. We gotta understand the lives of the people involved, the fear, the tension, the moments nobody sees, the moments that push ordinary people into extraordinary situations. And that's what makes this story not just viral, but impossible to forget. Denise Williams wasn't just a mom. She was a fighter, a single mother grinding through life in Novi, Michigan, working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on and put food on the table, juggling schedules, bills, and the weight of responsibility that would crush most people. But not her. She had hope, she had drive, and most of all, she had Aaliyah, her 6-year-old daughter, the bright little girl with eyes wide open to the world, curious, smart, protective, already learning to look out for her mom like a tiny guardian. And Denise, knowing the world wasn't always fair, started teaching her little girl lessons. No one should have to learn so young. How to walk safely down streets, how to be aware of strangers, how to keep calm when things get tense. And yes, she even showed her how to handle a gun responsibly, a tool for protection, something to defend life if it ever came down to that. Always emphasizing respect and caution, never violence, just safety. And growing up, Aaliyah soaked it all in, loving her mom, admiring her strength, learning from her example. But the world around them wasn't always kind. There were moments that left scars, moments at grocery stores when Denise and Aaliyah were followed, watched, asked questions they hadn't done anything to deserve, neighbors calling cops on them just because they looked suspicious, routine errands turning into moments of anxiety, each glance over the shoulder reminding them that in America, especially as a black family, safety was never guaranteed, and Denise had learned the hard way that you had to live cautiously, always aware, always prepared, because the system didn't always protect people like them. And each day, each small act of care, each lesson for Aaliyah was meant to build a shield against the world. But even with all her caution, all her preparation, all her careful planning, Denise had no idea that the ordinary day she thought would be simple. The day they went shopping for a TV would spiral into something so dangerous, so unimaginable, that no amount of caution could have saved her. And that's where this story begins. at the edge of the life they knew and the chaos that was about to hit. The moment when everyday struggle meets extraordinary fear, and Denise had learned to live cautiously. But even caution couldn't save her from what was coming. February 2nd started like any other day, but for Denise. Williams and her daughter, Aaliyah, it would become unforgettable. They pulled into Walmart, the sun bright, the parking lot buzzing. Denise feeling a little spark of excitement because today was special. Today, she finally had enough to grab that 75-inch TV they had been dreaming about for their new apartment, imagining movie nights, family time. A sense of normalcy and comfort that felt so hard-earned, they walked through the aisles, Denise carefully picking it up, stacking boxes in the cart, Aaliyah bouncing beside her, excited, pointing out the colorful displays, the world still safe in a way that kids should experience, and they finally got to checkout. Denise swiping her card, the cashier nodding, the transaction complete, the weight of accomplishment filling her chest. But the feeling of relief didn't last, because as they headed for the exit, that's when Trevor McCaffrey, the receipt checker, stepped in, blocking the way, eyes narrowed, arms crossed, insisting on seeing a receipt, and Denise realized her receipt had slipped from her purse without her noticing. Panic rising, but trying to stay calm, she explained, told him the cashier had just rung it up, that everything was paid for. But Trevor didn't back down, his tone sharp, his body language rigid, refusal dripping from every movement, like he knew something she didn't, like he had already decided she was lying. The crowd started watching now, curious glances, whispers floating through the air, and Aaliyah's hand found her mom's, squeezing tight, fear creeping into her little body. Denise kept her voice steady, kept her words measured, trying to reason, trying to explain, trying to show that she had done nothing wrong. But Trevor shook his head, dismissing her, calling it theft, ignoring the cashier's confirmation, ignoring the proof right in front of him, his suspicion turning into accusation. And then, before she could react further, he pulled out his phone and called the police, escalating a situation that could have been handled with a simple apology or a quick check. And Denise, heart racing, Aaliyah clutching her hand, tried to breathe, tried to keep her composure, knowing that everything she had worked for, everything she had built, was now teetering on the edge of something dangerous. And in that moment, the ordinary shopping trip shifted into something surreal, something tense, something that would push both mother and daughter into a situation nobody could have prepared them for, a situation that would change their lives forever. The sound of sirens cut through the parking lot like a warning bell, metal and lights flashing, and before Denise could even catch her breath, Officer Lindsay Carter pulled up, a rookie, fresh on the force, known for following the book to the letter, eyes sharp, hand on her holster as if she already knew trouble would find her. She stepped out with authority, voice sharp and demanding. "Put your hands behind your back!" Denise tried to stay calm, raising her hands slowly, pulling the receipt from her purse, showing the proof from the cashier that everything had been paid for, hoping reason would prevail, hoping the tension would ease. But Carter wasn't listening, her tone dripping with accusation, twisting the situation, calling Denise's hesitation resistance, turning the ordinary into confrontation. And before Denise could fully explain, the officer lunged, grabbing her arm, twisting, yanking her toward the ground, the impact knocking the wind out of her, the world tilting sideways, her body hitting cold asphalt, pain shooting through her ribs. Aaliyah screaming from the SUV, tiny hands pressed to her face, eyes wide with terror, trapped behind the glass, hearing her mother struggle, feeling the panic, the helplessness. Denise's breath ragged, her voice pleading, trying to explain, to reason, to survive. But the officer's grip was relentless, her movements rigid and unyielding, the crowd frozen, some stepping back, some unable to look, as the scene escalated faster than anyone could react. And in that slow, suspended moment, the fear was almost tangible, music of anxiety in every heart. Aaliyah witnessing her mother pinned, assaulted, cornered, a child forced to watch the adult world erupt into violence over a misunderstanding that should have been nothing. and the world seemed to tilt on a knife's edge, every second dragging into eternity, and in that suspended chaos, one question hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. What would anyone do when everything they love is threatened and nobody is listening? The chaos froze for just a second, the world holding its breath as Aaliyah's little hands trembled on the car door handle, her heart pounding louder than the sirens, louder than the crowd. Inside her head, her. Mother's voice echoed soft but firm. Never use it unless you have to protect life. She'd heard it 100 times, always during those quiet nights when her mom locked up the house and reminded her how scary the world could be. Now that fear was alive right in front of her. She opened the glove box, fingers brushing cold metal, the weight of a decision far too heavy for a 6-year-old to carry. She stepped out of the SUV, voice shaking but fierce, yelling, "Stop hurting my mom!" The officer turned, startled, eyes wide, hand twitching toward her weapon, and for one impossible moment, everything went still. The air itself seemed to collapse into silence. Then came the sound, sharp, deafening, final. The echo bounced off the cars, faded into the distance, leaving behind nothing but silence, shock, and disbelief. The world stopped moving. The bystanders froze. And as the sound faded into nothingness, one truth settled heavy on everyone's heart. A 6-year-old girl had just done what no one thought possible. Red and blue lights painted the parking lot like a nightmare. More sirens cutting through the air as backup arrived, officers shouting, people screaming, the chaos spreading like wildfire. Denise slowly came to, dazed, her head throbbing, eyes darting around in confusion until she saw her little girl sobbing beside her, trembling, her small hands still shaking. The realization hit her like a brick. What had just happened wasn't a dream. Her baby had pulled the trigger. Officers rushed in, cuffing Denise, separating her from Aaliyah, ignoring her cries, ignoring the truth that was already buried under fear and assumption. Inside the cruiser, Denise sat silent, staring at the reflection of flashing lights on the window, whispering prayers no one could hear. Hours later, the security footage surfaced, showing what the world hadn't seen: the receipt, the paid transaction, the confrontation that never should have happened. The video spread online like wildfire. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all boiling with outrage. Hashtags exploded overnight. Protests filled the streets, people demanding accountability, demanding justice, questioning how a simple trip to Walmart had turned into another national headline about race, fear, and a broken system. Commentators debated law, others debated morality, but one thing was certain. This wasn't just another story of violence. It was the breaking point. And as the footage replayed across every screen, one voice cut through the noise, raw and heavy. They didn't just survive a tragedy. They became the face of a national reckoning. Months passed, but the echoes of that day never faded. Denise packed what was left of their lives into cardboard boxes and left Novi behind, the streets and memories too heavy to stay near. Every night she'd wake to the sound of sirens that weren't there, guilt clawing at her chest, asking herself if she could have done something, anything, different. Aaliyah, once full of laughter, now spoke little, her therapy sessions filled with drawings of her mom holding her hand under a bright sun, like she was trying to color peace back into a world that had taken it away. The community tried to help, bringing meals, sending cards, raising funds, but no one could erase the image burned into everyone's mind: a mother on the ground, a daughter trying to protect her. Some called them heroes, others victims, but for Denise and Aaliyah, those labels meant nothing. What they wanted was what everyone wants: safety, peace, the chance to live without fear. And as the narrator's voice fades, one question lingers like a shadow over the story. When justice fails, who protects the innocent? In the end, this story was never just about a gun or a moment. It was about a system that keeps pushing ordinary people to the edge. Denise and little Aaliyah became unwilling symbols of what happens when fear and profiling meet at the crossroads of power. In America, self-defense looks different depending on the color of your skin, and justice, well, it doesn't always wear the same face. Every headline, every protest, every tear shed after this case became a mirror held up to a nation still struggling to see its own reflection clearly. Because what happened in that Walmart parking lot wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning, a call to pay attention to the lives too often silenced under the weight of misunderstanding and prejudice. This was not just a story about crime, it was about survival and a child's impossible choice. And this is the Untold Crime Chronicles. Subscribe, comment your thoughts, and share this story, because the truth must always be told.